Hi, welcome to the December weather trend forecast. This, of course, is the first month of the meteorological winter, but often in the UK, if we are going to get cold and snowy periods, they come in January, February, or even March. The December weather can often be quite nondescript, and sometimes it feels like a continuation of the autumn. So, what are things looking like this year? Well, I'll start by taking a look at the short term. This animation runs from 18 GMT, Friday the 3rd. And at the outset, it's very much an Atlantic-driven pattern. We've got winds coming in from the west across the UK. There's an area of low pressure just to the south running eastwards. And all in all, it's quite unsettled. And that theme continues through the next few days. We pull some cold air down from the north for a time, then more weather systems push in from the west. And then into the early part of next week, so around Tuesday the 7th, Wednesday the 8th, there is the potential for a nasty area of low pressure to move in from the Atlantic and deepen quite rapidly close to the UK. That could well bring very windy conditions, but there is a good deal of uncertainty about the details at this stage. I'll look at that in a little bit more detail in a moment. Just to run this sequence through to its conclusion, it continues to be unsettled. That area of low pressure slowly moves away, and then through the rest of the period, going out to Saturday the 11th of December, it's an Atlantic pattern which remains in place, so more disturbances move in, bringing the likelihood of further spells of rain. You may have noticed there was some white shading appearing on the animation. That is snow, but it was mostly over the northern half of the UK and particularly over high ground. So through this first 10 days or so, the key thing there according to this animation is that it's going to be unsettled. Now, I mentioned that deep area of low pressure, potentially bringing very strong winds for a time. This is the jet stream forecast chart for Wednesday the 8th. You can see the low pressure here in this big dip in the jet stream. So it will be quite slow moving, probably loitering around close to the UK for several days as it slowly weakens. Of course, that's if this computer model run is correct. Now, in terms of the wind gusts which we can expect, these are forecast maximums at 06 GMT on Wednesday the 8th from the GFS model, the same one which the sequence was generated from. Gusts in parts of central and eastern England there over 50 miles an hour, 55 or so. And in the hours which preceded this, you would have seen very strong winds to the southwest as well. But there are some computer model runs which are taking that area of low pressure further northwards, developing it less or developing it more. And as I say, it's really a case of watching the short range forecasts as the time approaches. Just to give some indications from the Ensemble data for wind strengths, this is from MOGREPS, the Met Office Ensemble model. It's for London and it's showing forecast wind gusts from all of the runs in it. And what we can see is this period where there's a risk of very strong winds, the 6th to the 9th of December. Most of the individual runs are going for something like 30 or 40 miles an hour gusts, but there are a few which are going over 50 in the London area. Just going up to Aberdeen, so to the northeast of the UK, and once more here's a windy period. This time some of the individual runs are going up to about 60 or even 70 miles an hour, but those at 70 miles an hour do seem to be outliers at the moment. They are very much in a minority. Nonetheless, as I say, it does look as though there is that possibility of it becoming very windy through this time period, so the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th of December, the uncertainty about how that low pressure is going to develop, the track which it's going to take, and hence where the strongest winds will be. Definitely something to keep a close eye on. What about the following week? Well, onto the Ensemble data, looking at the GEFS 16-day plot for London. Upper air temperatures there across the top. To begin with, they're close to a 30-year norm, but later on they are trending upwards. So there's a clear signal there for the upper air level temperatures to be increasing towards the end of the period. Whether or not those are correlating closely with the ones down at the ground level is something I'll discuss in a moment. But just before I go on to that, rainfall, well, quite a few spikes there to begin with through the second week, but later on the number of them decreases. It suggests that it will be turning drier towards the middle of the month and beyond it, possibly due to high pressure having more influence, of course. Now, going up to Glasgow, just to see the same chart, upper air temperatures there are further below the 30-year norm at the beginning of the second week, but towards the end they also pick up. Rainfall, well, here it's a distinctly wet picture. Bigger spikes, more spikes due to disturbances pushing in from the Atlantic, hitting the northwest of the UK, the west of the UK, when they are more active and then slowly decaying as they move southeastwards. So this is clearly suggesting that the wettest conditions are likely to be in the west and particularly the northwest. I mentioned 2-metre temperatures. Here's the data table for London. The reason I find this quite interesting is because through the second week, initially, if anything, there's a warming trend there. The amount of yellows in the columns increases. The yellows are runs going for 11 to 15 Celsius, so mild or even very mild at this time of the year. But towards the end, even though the upper air temperatures were continuing to increase, what we're seeing here is that 2-metre temperatures are possibly beginning to move downwards. The amount of light green in the columns there starts to increase once again towards the very end. It's suggesting, therefore, that high pressure is building, probably from the south, and with quiet conditions, light winds, the possibility of clear skies developing on some nights, temperatures down at the ground level, the ones we actually experience, may well be starting to dip, even though we've got mild air above us. In terms of the Glasgow 2-metre temperature profile, there the pattern through the second week is maybe less marked. There isn't a cooling trend towards the end. If anything, there's an upwards trend through the first half of the second week, with the amount of light green there increasing and becoming the dominant colour in those columns, so probably becoming milder in the northwest later on. And that does correlate with the upper air temperature profile. So what about the second half of the month? Again, there's a warning. It's very, very tenuous at this range. It's just about trying to identify the direction of travel, if there is one. Sometimes there really isn't. You can't say a great deal, but let's take a look at some of the Ensemble data here. First of all, I'll bring up the postage stamp chart. This is generated from the GEFS model, and it's showing pressure patterns and 500 HPA heights. So it's really given a view of the synoptic setup that's been forecast from all of the individual runs across the North Atlantic region on Sunday, the 19th of December. Now, I've gone through the individual stamps, and approximately 20 of them have high pressure influence in the weather, mostly in southern and central regions. That leaves another 10, so 1/3 of the total, which have a more dominant Atlantic flow across all parts of the UK. Therefore, I think the message from this is the signal for high pressure to begin building from the south during the middle part of December is actually quite strong. Most of the individual runs here are suggesting it will happen. And that possibly ties in quite nicely with the signal for 2-metre temperatures to start dipping after the middle part of the month towards the 18th and 19th of December, even though upper air temperatures are, if anything, still rising. Now, looking at the 500 HPA height anomaly charts for weekly summary, remember these can be thought of as pressure anomalies. This is for the week beginning Thursday the 16th. Yellows and oranges or browns across virtually the whole of Europe there. You've got to go up to the northwest to Iceland to find a negative anomaly. That means there's a strong signal for pressure to be higher than the 30-year norm through this week when taken as a whole. Going forwards to the week beginning the 23rd, obviously a week which holds much interest for many people. Will it snow on the 25th? I'll be looking at that, of course, in the next Christmas video, which will be released shortly. But once more, the signal at the moment is for pressure to be higher than the norm, particularly as you head northwards. Could be quite interesting. There may be some signal here for higher pressure to be migrating a little bit further northwards, perhaps more of a continental flow developing across southern and central regions, and in turn that could lead to colder conditions becoming more established during this week. But it's a long way off, of course, and there is a signal perhaps for pressure to begin falling towards the very end of the month. So you can't see it on this chart, but some of the other 35-day plots are indicating that, and in turn that would hint of a transition back to more unsettled weather towards the very end of the month. Looking at the upper air temperature anomaly charts, going back to the week beginning the 16th, reds across the UK, so the anomaly there 1, 2 or 3 Celsius above that 30-year norm. As I said, it could still be chilly down at the ground level, particularly in the south due to light winds and clear skies at night, allowing temperatures to drop. But with positive upper air temperature anomalies, it does mean that any precipitation which falls is likely to be, almost certainly to be, rain rather than sleet or snow. Moving forwards though to the week beginning the 23rd, and look what's happened. It's now a weekly negative anomaly over southern and central regions. Head northwards and there really isn't much of an anomaly at all. Keep going up towards Iceland and to the north of the UK, and if anything there, it's positive. So once more, it's possibly pointing towards more of a continental influence in southern and central regions for Christmas week. That would certainly be an interesting scenario. The London 2-metre temperature plot suggests colder periods at times through the second half of the month. The two red lines are the Ensemble mean maximum and minimum. They dip below the thick black line, which is the 30-year norm. Now, although they aren't far from it, I think because the forecast lead time is so long here, it is significant. Often when looking this far ahead, all of the individual runs of the ensemble become like spaghetti. They cancel one another out, and you end up with something which is more or less slap bang in line with the 30-year average. Not the case here. The surface level pressure chart for York can be summed up, I think, as above average, at least during the beginning of the second half of the month. Later on, the thick red line, which is the ensemble mean, dips down, so perhaps a trend towards lower pressure developing there. That would suggest more changeable conditions beginning to return, a greater risk of showers or longer spells of rain, as well as windy periods possibly. So to summarise the month, week 1, it's looking unsettled and possibly very windy for a time. Temperatures fluctuate, but it will be rather cold on some days, and there is a risk of snow in the north, particularly over high ground. Week 2, the mostly unsettled theme continues, wettest in the north, driest in the south. The signal is for it to become milder in the south later on. The rest of the month, obviously at this range confidence is very low, but the computer models are suggesting a drier period in southern and central regions. That could lead to an increased risk of frost and fog. In the north, and particularly the northwest, it is more likely to remain changeable. Towards the end of the month, pressure perhaps begins to fall and the risk of rain starts to spread southeastwards again. So there we have it. Now I'm going to finish off by saying that my tip is to keep a close eye on developments from the middle of the month onwards. The reason is that with computer models showing high pressure having more influence than is usually the case, it leads to the possibility, just the possibility, of things turning significantly colder. Temperatures can quickly drop in the UK at this time of the year if the Atlantic flow is blocked off. Just something to watch. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, then please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Thanks now. Bye.